This gun of the hand is for the taking of human life. We believe it is wrong to take life. That is only for God. Many times wars have come. And people have said to us, you must fight, you must kill. It is the only way to preserve the good. But Samuel, there is never only one way. Remember that. Would you kill another man?
I would only kill a bad man.
Only the bad man, I see. And you know these bad men by sight? You are able to look into their hearts and see this badness?
I can see what they do. I have seen it.
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Laik. Coen brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet. A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel. Alvin and the Chipmunks deserve another squeakquel. There's so many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update. But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters, Mummers, and Yinzers. This is Ruined Childhoods, specifically the 38th episode of our cinematic trek across America. And this week we are in the Keystone State. Come here to eat a soft pretzel, get a lesson in colonial American history, or catch a game for one of the major sports teams spanning two different cities. This state is the birthplace of Taylor Swift, Holland Taylor, and Jonathan Taylor Thomas. This state is also known for some of its specialized religious factions, notably the Mennonites, Quakers, whatever the people from the village are, and most famously the Amish. That's right, we're in Pennsylvania talking about one of the most well-known films about the Amish community, 1985's Witness. But before we get to that, Dan, do you have any favorite memories visiting Pennsylvania?
Wow. Yeah. So, having grown up in New Jersey, Pennsylvania was not too far away. Yeah. I mean, it's a big state. There is a good, I think I have maybe been a third into Pennsylvania. If that huge. Actually, not even that. So, but you mentioned the village, the people in the village, they're the Shyamalanians.
Yeah.
They live in the Shyamalans.
What's the name? Not to like spoil the village, but I think the name of the like wildlife refuge there is called like the Walker Wildlife Refuge, so maybe like the Walkerites or something.
Yeah, I forget what that movie. That movie came out 20. I think that's 20. Is that 20 years ago? This summer.
I think 2004.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I believe that was a 2004 movie. That I was disappointed with that, but we'll talk about that another time.
Well, I mean, now's a good time to talk about it, considering we're talking about Pennsylvania.
I guess, yeah.
And M. Night Shyamalan is such a Pennsylvania filmmaker. I know that I asked you a question. We'll get back to it.
We'll get back to it. I didn't forget.
We'll get back to that. But The Village, I remember when I first saw it and thinking, like, oh, okay. And then and then it's like, you don't need to see it again unless you want to go and watch it to be like looking for the clues or whatever.
Right.
But mostly it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. For me, my reaction to it was more like throughout the movie, I was really bothered by the acting of people whose acting I normally really enjoy. And again, I'm trying to respect the fact that I don't need to spoil the movie, so I'm not going to. But I'm just going to say that and we know that by this point in M. Night Shyamalan's career, I think this is really his leaning into the whole, like, what's the twist of his movies. And this was the first one where I felt the rest of the movie was kind of, it served the twist rather than the twist serving the movie. And I felt like the rest of the movie suffered because it was all about this twist, and it was like he just kind of.
The Sixth Sense is good, twist or not.
Correct.
And Unbreakable is an Unbreakable is a fun watch, and you get a lot out of it. And the twist is kind of like and then there's that. But yeah, you're right. For The Village, it's more of just like, this movie is nothing without the twist. Well, Dan, enough of Shyamalan talk. I asked you a question. I'd love you to answer it. Tell me about your experiences in Philly. Not Philly necessarily.
Well,
that's just where
not
I live,
Philly
but
necessarily, but I'm gonna start in Philly because that you lived in Philly for several years, and
Sure
I drove down and would come down and visit and hang out, and we worked on. You helped me edit the film that I was making for the filmmaking class that I was teaching on weekends, and we had a lot of fun putting that together and watching the trailer for Live Free or Die Hard like 1,000 times. That was awesome. We had just a lot of good times going. I remember the one time that we went to a concert, and there were a bunch of like yours and Scott, our other brother, a lot of like those friends. It was the night that the term banjo in reference to the bathroom was coined.
All right.
Was that a Spinto Band show?
I want to say that was actually a Built to Spill show.
No,
you weren't there for that.
I've never seen Built to Spill.
Okay, so I'm gonna paint a little picture. I don't remember. I always thought that was a Built to Spill show, but if you were there for the banjo situation, okay. So at this time, I was living in. I guess it would have been northeast Philly, North Philly. And
it was near there was a church nearby.
There's a church across the street. So it was close to like 10th and Spring Garden, if I'm remembering correctly. And I lived in this house with these guys, and we all got together after this show that we went to, came back to the house. Everyone was kind of crashing there. And a friend of ours who was under the influence and was feeling groovy,
as we all were,
was inquiring where the bathroom was, and asked, "Where's the banjo?" And all of us knew instantly that what he meant was like banyo or bathroom, but didn't question it, and directed him to the bathroom, and then later said, "Wait a second, did he just say banjo?" And when he was explaining it, was saying, "Oh, well, banyo," and in his mind, banyo is spelled Banjo. Right. Like, but in Spanish, you don't say the J. And then it's like, yeah, no, that's not right. And then it just kind of became part of our everyday lexicon.
Yeah. It is indeed. Like sometimes I'll use it around.
I use it all the time.
Oh, people have no idea what I'm talking about, and I don't care. And I'm just like, that's what I'm saying.
If they can't figure it out instantly, then there's a problem, and that's their problem.
I mean, pretty much right after I say it, I walk in a very specific direction. So there's context clues, multiple context clues.
Gonna go hit the band.
We didn't even need those because because he didn't know where he was going. That was the context of the query. But,
we all knew.
So we'll lump the Philadelphia trips, and then there were some other Philadelphia trips. Like I remember going with my 5th grade religious school class from Temple Emmanuel in Westfield, New Jersey. And we took a bus trip to Philadelphia to see. I remember going to the Bourse, which had been some sort of other building that was turned into a shopping mall. And I remember that was where I bought the book, The Running Man, because the movie was in theaters at the time. I didn't see it. I was a bit young to see
Richard Bachman's The Running Man.
Right. But I bought it. I remember going into a bookstore and buying it there, and wish I still had that copy, but I don't.
Well, we're going to talk about book later, but a different kind of book.
True, John. Anyhow, going back, I will go more quickly through some other favorite Pennsylvania moments in other.
Well, before you move on, I want to say that also at the Bourse that you mentioned, there was a movie theater called. There's a small chain of 3 movie theaters that were like art house theaters called the Ritz. I believe they were bought out by Landmark, and I don't know what their current status is, but there was the Ritz 5, where I worked right when I was finishing up college for a little while. Then there was the Ritz at the Bourse, and then I think there was the Ritz East. And they were all pretty close to each other. And you would see a lot of the type of stuff that, like, the big multiplexes weren't showing.
Right.
A lot of the more like indie stuff, not like super indie, and not a lot of like repertory films. It was a lot of like new release, like indie stuff. But this is, this is like mid 2000s, early 2000s.
Yeah. No, I remember hearing about that theater from a few people. A friend of mine from college who grew up in Delaware, who would go into Philly to see films at the Ritz. And it always reminded me of, and I'm just a brief tangent to shout out a favorite old movie theater, the art house that I started going to in high school, that was probably the closest theater to where we lived that would show independent and foreign films. And that was the Lost Picture Show in Union, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I saw films there like, Robert Altman's Porto. I saw Neil Jordan's The Butcher Boy. I remember seeing some other films there, but it was just one of those really cool, just like little places that had like one screen. So that was cool. So, all right, other Pennsylvania events. One of my favorite concerts, one of my favorite Rusted Root concerts, having seen the 90s favorite band Rusted Root about 6 times in over the course of, I don't know, 10
and they're a Pittsburgh band,
right? Yes. So I have never been to Pittsburgh, so did not see them there, but I saw them. They were playing at a club in Allentown, called Crocodile Rock. And I remember I went with Scott, and
our brother Scott,
and I want to say Michelle Katina.
Oh, okay.
Was there may have
shout out to Michelle if you're listening.
But if I remember correctly, that it was the 3 of us that went to Crocodile Rock to see Rusted Root, and it was pretty awesome. And the first time I saw them was super awesome. It was on like not their first tour, but their tour for their first album. And
well, I think that the first time that I ever saw any, like my first concert, like the first time I ever saw any like real like adult band that wasn't like kids music, was Rusted Root. That we went to at Wayne College, maybe
William Patterson in Wayne, New Jersey. William Patterson College, in Wayne, New Jersey. That was an excellent show. That was, and that was not on the same. That was earlier. The show I went with Scott to was like 2002. So
this would have been like 96 or 97, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I want to say early 97, if I remember correctly.
I've seen them quite a few times. Also, they're a fun band to see live. That one that we went to together in 96 or 97 was my first time smelling reefer.
Oh yeah,
and boy, oh boy, was that an enlightening experience. Just kind of, I felt like I had been initiated into a new world, and not that I partook. I was a child, but
but it was in the air. So
it was in the air, and just like knowing, up until that point, my understanding of marijuana was just like what I heard in the DARE program, then it was like, oh, it just makes people feel really happy, and it has a cool smell. Oh,
it makes
music better.
Music in particular. I'm pretty sure that one of the contributing factors to me, like, ever deciding I wanted to try smoking pot was because I started listening to Rusted Root. I was like, I'm pretty sure I was like, I really, really like this music. And I'm pretty sure that this type of music would just be, I would hear it on a whole other level on pot. So I definitely remember like that was like one of my first things was like, yeah, I'm going to get high and listen to Rusted Root. And that I
Fun
did.
Pittsburgh band.
Anyway,
yeah,
so coming back,
Pennsylvania.
I'm going to shout out one last Pennsylvania trip that I made because it was the only time I've ever been out near Amish Country, Lancaster County. And that was because my good friend growing up, Scott Dobrin.
Another Scott. I'm glad I asked to clarify the Scott from before now that we have another Scott coming into the picture.
And when you did, that definitely occurred to me. I said, yes, this will need to be clarified. So his family, I don't think they owned, like his parents live out there now. Near like Lancaster, but like they always used to go to this farm. Like they knew someone who had this farm and they would always go there. So I went down, I never stayed over there, but I went for a day trip.
That's cool.
Out there. And that was really, so that's my first hand. That's also my only real first hand, not really contact, but we saw people riding in buggies.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
I didn't harass them.
Right. It's, talking about witness gives us a really cool opportunity to kind of discuss the fascination with the Amish, especially in media. There are, were, especially in like the 80s and 90s, TV shows would kind of have their like episode that had some sort of tie-in with the Amish. And clearly we have movies like Witness, and then there's like For Richer or Poorer with Kirstie Alley and
Tim
Allen. And then of course there's Kingpin, and that trend has pretty much died out or died down significantly. And it's almost just like, okay, we did that. We did our movies incorporating the Amish, and now we're going to just kind of let that be.
Right. Have you ever heard of the musical that is set in Amish country?
No, I have not. Oh, and there was also Amish Paradise, Weird Al.
Right. Yeah, which was 1990, like 95, 96. It was at that time. Like Kingpin was 96.
Yeah. And definitely, and there were shows like Breaking Amish, and things that would focus on like Rumspringa. There was the band Rumspringa. So there's certainly a fascination with the Amish, and I understand it, and I'm kind of glad that we've reached a point where it's kind of like, okay, we need to be a little bit more understanding of the desires to perhaps not be, poking and prodding at their lifestyle and, in some ways making fun of it. Oh, Pee-wee's Big Holiday had a scene with the Amish.
Oh, yes.
But it was very funny, and it has the little balloon squeak gag, which is delightful.
Oh my God.
But it's just one scene. It's not a whole movie about it.
Right. No. So sorry to come back to the musical Plain and Fancy. I just want to read the plot synopsis here from Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. New York City sophisticates Dan King and Ruth Winters travel to Bird in Hand in the Amish country of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, to sell a piece of property to Jacob Yoder, who intends to present it to his daughter Katie and her intended Ezra as a wedding gift. While there, they become involved with the local villagers, including Hilda Miller, who mistakes Dan's kindness for romantic overtures, and Ezra's banished brother Peter, who returns to claim the hand of his childhood sweetheart, Katie.
My goodness.
The song list includes Plenty of Pennsylvania, The Shunning,
Okay.
How Do You Raise a Barn, and City Mouse, Country Mouse. Those are just some of the songs in...
It seems like popular culture gives the impression that the Amish are just constantly raising barns. Like every day a new barn goes up.
I mean, there is a barn raising in this musical.
Well, yeah. I mean, if there's a song about it, it's certainly
but it's not just a song about it. Like, it happens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like when you're doing a TV show, movie, play or something about the Amish, it's like, what are the things that we have to choose from? You know, some sort of like butter churning or cow milking. That's definitely part of it. Some discussion of a shunning is going to happen, and then raising a barn. Those are the things that can happen. And it's just how much can you really cover that territory beyond what's already there?
Right.
And I gotta say, what I really respect about the movie Witness is that you really aren't playing the lifestyle and the people who are Amish as caricatures. It's not being done for comedy.
Right.
And much, love Weird Al, but Amish Paradise was never my favorite. And I felt like that was because it kind of, I don't know about punched down, but it was like, it's just such an easy target of something to goof on.
It's kind of for Weird Al. It was easy for Weird Al. And I mean, I remember, like, I'm pretty sure I owned the single of that, or perhaps I don't know, like the CD single or something like that. And I remember watching the video a lot and finding it funny, but like I also remember going to see Kingpin and finding that hilarious. And it was that because also like I was 18, 19, 20 at that time, and also not really like aware of like, hey, this is not really this is not really fair to these people to represent them in this way.
Yeah.
But Witness, I agree, does not. Witness, and I know Witness was, controversial among the Amish community, but I think that other than it provides a kind of mechanism for John Book's character arc, it is not exploited in this film. And in fact, it is not exploitative. The representation is not exploitative.
Yeah, and it makes a point also to demonstrate how the Amish are exploited, and how he gets defensive over his new friends, the people who are giving him this sense of community, and that's kind of what does it in for him. But you got to move the movie forward somehow.
But we'll circle back to that, because I don't want to dive in pre-synopsis and get into the nitty-gritty.
Well, let's before we get into the synopsis and the nitty-gritty, I will also just tell you, yes, of course, there was a Murder, She Wrote that takes place in Amish country. Jessica is in Philadelphia for like a book tour or something, and somebody at the publishing company volunteers to take her to Amish country where she wants to go buy a quilt. And what she doesn't know is that this person was a shunned member of the Amish community. And we discover why he was shunned, the person responsible for it, and why that person was perhaps a bit of an unsavory character. And just as she does with everything else, Jessica Fletcher handles it in a very tasteful way. And they are not, I'd say, presenting the Amish in an unsavory light. And, as respectful as one can be while handling a subject matter that is, very personal to members of this community. enough about Murder, She Wrote. Let's move on to our synopsis. How does that sound?
Enough about Murder, She Wrote for now.
For now. I'm always happy to come back to it.
We know. Absolutely. So a synopsis, and then let's talk about Witness.
Dude, I'm psyched. All right.
Yeah.
While waiting in a Philadelphia train station on a trip to visit family in Maryland, an Amish boy named Samuel witnesses a murder from a bathroom stall. The more he is questioned by Philadelphia homicide detective John Book, the more Samuel's recently widowed mother, Rebecca, gets annoyed. Book does his best to make Samuel and Rebecca feel comfortable while he works on finding the killer based on Samuel's little information. But when they're at the police station, Samuel recognizes the murderer in a framed newspaper article inside a glass case. When Book realizes that the killer is heralded narcotics lieutenant James McPhee, he understands the importance of keeping Rebecca and Samuel safe, so he has them stay with his sister. Meanwhile, Book alerts his former partner and current chief, Paul Schaefer, but when McPhee corners Book in a parking garage and they get into a shootout that leaves Book injured, he knows that Schaefer and McPhee are in cahoots, and his only option is to get Rebecca and Samuel out of his sister's place and back to Amish country immediately. Upon their arrival, it is clear that Book has lost a lot of blood, but going to the hospital would mean outing his whereabouts to the cops who are trying to find him. As he heals and forms a plan out in Amish country, Book proves himself useful and kind, catching Rebecca's eye, but the more their lives become intertwined, the more complicated things get, especially with corrupt cops wanting him and Samuel dead. There you have it. Harrison Ford is Detective Sergeant John Book. Kelly McGillis is Rachel. Oh, yeah. I've been saying Rebecca. Yes, oh my God.
I didn't want to interrupt.
You know, when I write these things from memory and I don't consult anything,
our YouTube audience will see I am mouthing Rachel.
Oh my God.
But
all right.
That's funny.
Many apologies. So Kelly McGillis plays Rachel. She's wonderful. Lucas Haas is Samuel. Is this Lucas Haas's first movie?
It is indeed. I think it's Kelly McGillis's first movie.
Really? She's fantastic. I love me some Kelly McGillis. Lucas Haas, is really great, especially considering it's his first go.
Oh yeah,
and this kind of is the beginning of a long string of of characters that he plays that are like from out in the country somewhere. Mars Attacks, Leap of Faith. He's kind of like the weird country kid.
Yeah, this one's a little different.
This one is certainly a lot different. But it's such a good, foray into acting, when you don't have a lot of lines, you don't have that much to do, but you're still like an extremely important character. You're kind of like the inciting, one of the inciting characters that kind of gets the story going.
Oh yeah. And he also really, I don't want to say he looks the role, but
yeah,
he doesn't look like some Hollywood kid who just came off like a Juicy Juice commercial.
Yeah.
He looks legit. You buy him. And Kelly McGillis, this was her second movie.
Oh, okay.
And I think that casting someone who was, predominantly unknown to audiences is, again, I think really a smart move. And she also really, again, I spent all of like a day anywhere near the Amish, so I really have no point of reference, but I think she really embodies that, like there doesn't seem to be a false moment there,
right,
with her. Even those moments where she slips and she starts to, starts to fall for him. They're these very genuine.
They have there's that scene where they get the car radio working and they're kind of dancing in the barn, and
classic.
It's so endearing, and it's one of the like great Harrison Ford moments when his personality shifts and you just see something different in him, and it's one of those moments when you kind of feel like Harrison Ford is really he's really into his character. I just really quick want to go back to Lucas Haas because I can't let it go any further without saying that Lucas Haas, as right as he looks playing these kind of like backcountry, very simple people, Lucas Haas was a member of the famed, and pardon my French, Pussy Posse with Leonardo DiCaprio, Tobey Maguire, and Kevin Connolly. Yeah. I think it was just the four of them. They were like the core four of the Pussy Posse.
Well, and I guess like that's how you get like Lucas Haas popping up in Inception.
Right. Yeah.
For example.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I forgot that the two of them are in that together.
Yeah.
Briefly.
Yeah, briefly, but still like Lucas Haas has a pretty featured role in the like opening sequence really of Inception. Like
he's the original architect.
Huge movie. Yeah.
Before Elliot Page comes in.
Absolutely. So anyway, but let's round out the cast before we start talking about the fantastic performances in this movie.
Danny Glover as McPhee. Oh, and it's always so weird to see him play a bad guy. The few times that it does happen, even though he's like supposed to be a good cop and everything, he's the bad guy. He's the villain.
Yep. Oh, he does it so well in this. Yeah. And you really, when he does, spoiler alert, 40 years old, almost, spoiler alert, when Danny Glover, gets his comeuppance, you're rooting for it. You're like, yes, take that son of a bitch out.
You're happy when he steps in cow shit.
Oh, like, yes.
You deserve that.
Very satisfying moment.
Very satisfying. Although I feel like McPhee doesn't have the most satisfying death. And this is another spoiler alert, but like certainly the other like crooked cop who gets like buried alive in the corn silo, man. Yeah. That's a satisfying death.
Well, and what's funny is I had remembered for a long time, the way that I had remembered it was that it was Danny Glover who bought it in the silo.
Well,
which is
kind of Chekhov's corn silo. And like, you kind of see it when he first gets there and they're showing him around and they're showing it to him and everything. And you're just like, this ain't the last we're going to see in this motherfucking corn silo.
Oh no. Well, exactly. Especially when you've seen the movie before and you come back to it, because that again, like, and we haven't really even gotten into talking about the movie, and we've talked about two of the most memorable sequences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Joseph Summer plays Schaefer, the chief, the main crooked cop. Yeah. And that's a really riveting character. It's this person who has had this, long working relationship with John Book. Mm-hmm. And they go from people who were confidants for each other and, they were so close with each other, and, Book calls the guy at his home, and he talks to the wife, and they know each other super well. And to be betrayed by somebody that you're so close with, man, that's tough. Yeah. Should we talk about Patti LuPone?
Patti LuPone, hell yeah.
That's great. His sister Elaine. I feel like the only other time we've talked about her was Driving Miss Daisy. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we haven't done like what else? Summer of Sam. We haven't done that.
We haven't done Summer of Sam.
No, I mean, I know she's in some other. I know she's in some other movies, but yeah, I think other than Driving Miss Daisy, we have not talked about the wonderful, fabulous Patti LuPone, who, as much as she's had a great film career, really Broadway is like her.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a fantastic stage actress, and, she's just a legend. And so when you see her in a movie like this playing Harrison Ford's sister, it kind of makes you go like, oh, that's Patti LuPone. Weird.
Yeah. She had already, I think at this point, had already played Evita on Broadway.
Oh, is that true? That she had already done that?
Yeah, Patti LuPone. Yeah, the original Evita, which I believe was in the early 80s, late 70s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So who else do we have?
Oh, Alexander Godunov.
Oh, yeah, and that's Daniel. He's the one who was also in Die Hard, right?
Yeah, correct.
He was only in a few movies. It kind of surprises you because he was so present in this era. He was a dancer and was appeared in films dancing in the 70s. And
he
then
died
Witness,
in 1995.
And that's when his last movie was, yeah. And he did Witness. I think was his first like narrative, like actual acting, not just dancing,
right?
And then was in The Money Pit, and then Die Hard,
yeah,
and then a couple of maybe less engaging ones. Was he played Amish dad in North? I forgot about any sort of Amish mention in North.
I've never seen North.
You've never seen North? Elijah Wood, Rob Reiner movie?
No, I know of North, but that's another one came out 30 years ago. I think summer 1994.
That was 1994. That's correct. Yeah, it's July 22nd, 1994. Wow. I mean, that's one where it was certainly more of my era. Like, that's a movie that I would have seen.
Yeah, I guess Elijah Wood is
Elijah Wood, John Lovitz, Alan Arkin, Dan Aykroyd, Kathy Bates, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Reba McEntire, John Ritter, Abe Vigoda, Bruce Willis. Man, what a cast.
I remember
Jason Alexander.
I remember Bruce Willis was in it. I remember there were a ton of people in it, and it was like this big like Rob Reiner had just like, I think, what did he have before that? Was A Few Good Men, like his last one before that, where he just had like hit after
A Few Good Men was right before that. Yeah. Well, this is Spinal Tap, The Sure Thing, Stand By Me, Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, A Few Good Men, North, The American President, Ghost of Mississippi, The Story of Us, Alex and Emma, Rumor Has It, The Bucket List, Flipped, which I don't really remember. And then a few that I don't really remember.
But like he's got that string of them.
What a stretch. I mean, damn.
And then
that is how it's done.
North hits and everything goes south.
Wah, wah.
I do remember
The American President is really sweet.
No. I was gonna say The American President is really good, and I remember feeling like Ghost of Mississippi was okay. It was definitely one of those like Oscar bait movies, but also like it's okay because James Woods actually plays a purely despicable piece of shit human being, so you can just watch it and you can hate watch James Woods either for the character or for James Woods or both. You have Alec Baldwin, Whoopi Goldberg, and James Woods. I think that's one that we maybe talked about doing for Mississippi, but either it wasn't available or we were just like, maybe we had come off of another one that was too dour a subject to do two back to back like that. Right. Yeah. So, but anyway, we did do the bucket list, and that's another Rob Reiner one. That's true. And like that one was deep, but like Rob Reiner just never, as a filmmaker, after A Few Good Men, I feel like never an American President comes close, but American President is just a really sweet story. And a lot of that just has to do with how great Annette Bening is, who starred in Regarding Henry with Harrison Ford, Back to Witness. Yes, there we go. So, all right. Anyone else in the cast that we have young Viggo Mortensen. Yeah, I don't think he says a single word, but he's just there as an Amish person, and he shrugs in agreement with somebody.
Maybe he says, like, one does not simply walk into Amish country.
Good one. Lord of the Rings.
Thank you.
Oh,
we got Robert Earl Jones as I think he was in the scene at the train station. Maybe he's one of the cops or something.
Who's Robert Earl Jones?
James Earl Jones's father?
Maybe. Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. All right. So
he was in he did a lot of work in like blaxploitation films, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So yeah. And
he was in Sleepaway Camp. Interesting. Just saying.
Oh, okay. All right. Fabulous. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Robert Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So Witness was released in February of 1985. It kind of seems like one of those movies that the studio didn't know what to do with.
Yeah, and it's a bit of an outlier. It's a hard sell, I think.
Well, and it's right, and it kind of defies classification under a genre because, like, there's romance. I mean, it's ultimately
forbidden romance.
There is a forbidden romance, but that's not the subject of the movie.
It's a thriller.
It's a thriller.
It's a crooked cop thriller.
But it's also about like deeper morals and choices. So it has a lot of depth to it, and it also, one of the things that I really enjoy. So Peter Weir as a director.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about Peter Weir.
Well, no, but we're going to talk about Peter Weir right now. And I think about Peter Weir, and I think about just like, okay, this is a filmmaker who seems to like to tell stories about these men at a crossroads. And I think about, and I haven't seen all of his films.
We covered maybe only Truman Show of his, right?
That we've done. Yes, we haven't done Dead Poets.
We haven't done Dead Poets Society. No. Perhaps we will. He hasn't even directed that many movies.
No, well, so I mean, he's also done Master and Commander. Green Card was one of his.
The Mosquito Coast.
The Mosquito Coast.
Yeah.
Right.
River Phoenix.
Which I haven't seen. I still haven't seen that one. He did a film called The Way Back, which I haven't seen, but which I heard was great. Fearless is another great one of his that is.
Oh, yeah. Jeff Bridges, Isabella Rossellini. Yeah.
Right. Where Jeff Bridges plays the survivor of a plane crash who then just like continues to seek out these like high risk things in like really testing his ability to defy death.
Fascinating story.
Yeah, really, really fascinating story. But Peter Weir, no matter what he's doing, and like this is in Fearless, he's telling the story of somebody who's having this like really serious, like this major moment in their life, and this extraordinary moment. But he has this wonderful way of finding the beauty in the mundane, which I think is just something that like a gifted filmmaker does, is finding beauty in places where we often don't see it. But he can take these subjects that might not seem interesting on the surface, and he makes them interesting. And like he gives them a gravity that they might not normally be given. It's what elevates Dead Poets Society. But he also, I think, channels a lot through these men, whether it's, you've got Mel Gibson, who worked with him, I think, twice, Russell Crowe, Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, Jeff Bridges, Ed Harris, Colin Farrell, the other piece of shit, Gerard Depardieu.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, it feels like he's kind of, and I like I said, I never saw Green Card. It does seem like kind of an outlier because it just seems like a straight up romantic comedy that somehow got nominated for a bunch of Oscars.
Oh, did it really?
I think so, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, let's see. Accolades: Academy Award, Best Screenplay Written for the Screen nominated. Screenplay for BAFTAs. It won the Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. Gerard Depardieu won the Golden Globe for Best Actor, Musical, or Comedy. Andy McDowell was nominated in the similar category.
I'm wondering what else was nominated, because like that was like for that would have been for 1990.
You know what? Is it worth digging back into that one?
I mean, worth it? No. Am I going to do it, in the background? Yes.
Yeah. Well, while you're doing that, I mean, what we were saying earlier for Peter Weir films, there's a lot of focus on people who are at a bit of a crossroads in their life where, what was going on before we catch up with them changes. Their lives kind of change into something else. So, Truman Show, clearly it's like he's been living obliviously and then comes to all of these realizations about who he really is. Witness, there is this kind of feeling of, these people who I knew and trusted have turned their back on me. And here I am discovering who I need to be for this next part of my life, while with these people whose lives are so different from my own. And as you were saying with Fearless, it's somebody who prior to this plane crash had, a very different life. And then from that point on, it's just like, well, what is the rest of my life? Well, and that's the question for a lot of these characters.
And he also in that film kind of goes from like this one group, like people that were his people, and he finds a new group with all of these other, and it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, but like this kind of like survivors group with like Rosie Perez. And I think his wife is played by Isabella Rossellini, and it's like he kind of like loses touch with her and feels like she doesn't understand him. So it's kind of a weird parallel to Witness, where he's kind of like, I can't go to the people I thought I could go to before. And meanwhile, I'm with these new people who are not people with whom I ever thought I would have any connection. Because one of the things this movie shows is like, it might not be a very far drive, or very long drive from Philadelphia to Lancaster County, but it's two different worlds.
Yeah, and also we should mention, Book's partner, who's played by Brent Jennings, I believe. He's, he can trust him and he knows him, but he's kind of like the guy who's, still kind of on the inside at the police station, is, it's his contact, but, as we find out, that gets him into trouble. And but it's, he's still one of the good guys, but he kind of needs to keep him where he is and not key him in too much to like his own whereabouts. But it's still somebody who he can trust as long as he can safely contact him. But it's a really complicated movie, and I love that Harrison Ford is such the right person to handle this, because if you look at a lot of the other actors of this era who could be in this situation, maybe James Woods is one of them. You could never buy that James Woods would have this conflict and empathize so deeply with the members of this community. And Harrison Ford can pull it off. He can pull off the the conflicted character who is internalizing so much and doesn't, it doesn't show as much on his face what he's going through, but that he's going through it. And that's a quality that not a lot of actors have.
Right. And with Harrison Ford, and also I think this is his first, I mean, maybe not, but like his first big role where he's playing contemporary.
Oh, okay.
Because I was thinking about like what had he done before Witness, and it was Blade Runner, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, even Apocalypse Now is set 10 years before it was. There's 10 years set 10 years before it was filmed.
Right.
So and American Graffiti.
So I mean, I'm just thinking, I guess as far as starring roles, that's likely.
Frisco Kid. I'm like, what else did he do before this? And
he was in Heroes, but he wasn't the lead in that. Henry Winkler was the lead in that one. He has a really fun role in that one. It is a contemporary film from '77. Okay. But I don't know if you've ever. I think we've talked about Heroes. It's I was thinking about a lot when I was watching a movie that you recommended to me recently, Rolling Thunder, with our boy William Devane, and it's like Rolling Thunder and First Blood. There's these movies about people who fought in was it Vietnam and Rolling Thunder also? Yeah. So there's people who fought in Vietnam who come home and their lives are completely changed for one reason or another.
He was a POW.
He was a POW
in Rolling Thunder. Yeah.
And in Heroes, Henry Winkler's character, it's the same, and he's kind of coming back, and he, eventually connects with Harrison Ford, who I believe he's served with, and they're both kind of living very different lives after coming back to the United States, and Harrison Ford's character is more of a fun-loving cowboy type. You could see him sharing DNA with his character from American Graffiti, and it's just like,
is he kind of doing the McConaughey thing?
He's kind of doing a McConaughey thing, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's fun to see because I mean, '77 is the same year as Star Wars, and clearly we see where his career goes from there, and. Yeah, you're right. Witness really is his first starring role that's set in contemporary times.
Well, and I always remember I've spoken before about my old English and high school film studies teacher, Mr. Ed Roberts, who had his typed out VHS catalog you could borrow.
I was thinking about that like yesterday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think I've probably posted, on our Instagram account, posted pictures of it, and I can certainly repost them. I managed to have saved it. And Witness was the movie. It's one of the, he had little blurbs for each one of these. I mean, he was doing stuff with he was doing all this literally cut and paste.
Yeah.
With a typewriter, and he had, for Witness, the description was the movie that took Harrison out of space and made Ford a star, or something, or took Ford out of space and made Harrison a star.
Raiders also took him out of space.
Well, yeah. Well, I guess,
and made him a real star.
But this movie, I think this movie was what gave him credibility as an actor. He got a Best Actor nomination.
Yeah. Harrison Ford, especially, just coming off of this film, I feel does a lot of really cool work. I mean, I love him in Working Girl. He's fantastic in Working Girl.
Yeah.
Presumed Innocent is very interesting. I've spoken about my fondness for Regarding Henry.
Oh yes.
Say what you will about it, but it holds a special place in my heart.
Speaking of the Ritz, all right.
Speaking of the Ritz, definitely. And then of course we have Patriot Games, and then The Fugitive and Clear and Present Danger. To a much lesser extent, Sabrina, The Devil's Own also, but Air Force One.
Air Force One.
Yeah. And then he's got a few little stinkers here and there. But
yeah, I think that's where he's kind of got that.
Yeah.
That's where he kind of has the dip. But I think he was kind of like, I feel like that was when he was kind of checked out of like the biz.
Well, he's always kind of given this air of like, does he really want to be doing this? And it's like, is he doing this just because he's really good at it, or does he actually enjoy doing what he's doing? And it's in certain movies where you see a side of him come out where it's just like, I think he actually is really into being an actor and like playing this role.
This
movie is one of them, you know, especially like we said, that kind of dancing scene where he has a little bit of a change to him.
It's such a nice scene, and it's like his smile in it.
And it's also one of the reasons why I like Regarding Henry so much, is because you see him doing really intricate acting.
Yeah.
You know, when he first starts to, speaking of Ritz, when he first starts to speak, and the connection that he has with Bradley, the physical therapist, and the shift that he has going from like, you know, asshole high powered attorney to pretty much a vegetable to just like a real sweetie pie. And having to kind of go through all those changes and still be the same person, but show different sides of that character.
Right.
And the connection that he has with his daughter in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really sweet. And the moments when he's not being like, you know, showboaty Harrison Ford, the way that you would see in something like Star Wars or the first 5 minutes of Regarding Henry, you really do see somebody who is trying really hard as an actor and to do something interesting.
Right. Yeah. And Witness really gives him a great chance to play those moments and play that progression from, and it's not like the movie does not end with him saying like, yes, I'm going to give up being a cop and,
yeah,
you know, live. I'm going to, you know, live among the Amish. Like that's not how it goes, because like he's still the same guy. Yeah. But when he gets into the altercation in town with the locals, and then Eli Lapp says to him like, you know, that's not our way, and he says, oh, it's my way.
It's my way. Yeah.
Like he's still that guy. And then you compare it to the moment at the end when Paul has the gun and all and Book is standing there, and the whole community is surrounding them, which, talk about a beautiful moment in the movie when Samuel rings the bell to call the rest of the community.
Yeah.
And you see them coming over the hill. You see Daniel and his brother just like turn and look. It's like
totally
like no questions asked. We're going.
Yeah.
And you see when Paul realizes like he's done and he drops the gun, and Book is standing there. And what I love is that you see it in him. Like, you know, with this character, you're expecting him. You feel like he's going to hit him, like he's going to take a swing. And that's what you're expecting of the Harrison Ford character. And when he doesn't, it's a really satisfying moment, not because he's necessarily given up violence forever, but he doesn't need to.
He's more calculated about how he uses his, you know, his strength, and when he knows it's not needed.
Right. And he also knows that it also feels like there's a little bit more respect to the people who have come to help him and support him.
Yeah.
And say like, no, I am not the same as him. I am not on that level. I am not going to do this. He gave up the gun. We're going to cuff him and arrest him.
Sure. And that's also why Schaefer, the chief, doesn't, try and shoot any of them, is because he knows, like, I'm way outnumbered here. And I know that if they are backed into a corner, they will take action. And I am useless.
But that's another that's another great moment that Ford has, is when he faces me, he says, "What are you going to do? You're going to shoot me, and then you're going to shoot that, and then what's your next step?" And that's it's a powerful, it's one of many powerful moments.
Yeah. Speaking of powerful moments, I also want to really shout out the moment when Samuel and Rachel are heading to Philadelphia at first, and we see, like, Daniel, showboating. He's like ghost riding the horse and buggy, and, like, standing on the thing and just kind of cruising along just to get them to, like, smile. And it's just like, man, that's cool. That's some Amish swagger right there.
Daniel's got Riz.
Daniel's got Amish Riz.
Daniel
Big
like
time.
originated and Daniel another really nice, like, the nuance of Daniel is because yes, he's the romantic rival for Book, who's our protagonist, but Daniel's not an antagonist.
No.
And Daniel really does want what's best for Rachel and for Samuel, and
Rachel, who was recently widowed.
Yeah.
And Daniel's like, I know that I'm next to get in there, but I gotta just play it cool. And also understands that, like, okay, this cop who's here, he's not like a threat. He might be a momentary, like, questionable situation for Rachel, but, ultimately, he's not a member of our community.
He's not a member of the community. Yeah. He does show that, like, he does join them. He works, and I guess Harrison Ford gets to rely on his carpenter. I wonder if that was something they worked into the script.
Yeah, because, I mean, he shows off, like, in a really cool way. It's like you can tell this dude's competent. That's great.
And also, but I mean, also Harrison Ford's history and training and experience as a carpenter.
Yeah.
But like the barn raising scene, and, like, even just little things like Daniel sharing the lemonade with him.
Yeah.
Like, it shows that, like, okay, like, this guy Daniel, like, he definitely is feeling a little like, hey man, like, no, back off my situation. And he has that one great line, like, oh yeah, no, I heard you got your car working. He's like, great, so you can leave.
Yeah.
And it's all in good fun. And then there's there's a great moment. I mean, it's like, as even, like, I think the credits start rolling at the end as Book is driving away, and Daniel, of course, is on his way to the house, to the Lap's house. And you just see the car stops, and you don't hear them say anything.
Sure.
But you can just tell, like, there's an exchange, and there's a respect there.
Yeah. Totally.
And I like that. I like that, like, this movie isn't like, okay, we have bad guys. We don't need to have, like, everything. This doesn't need to lean into soap opera territory.
Right.
Just because there's maybe a little bit of a love triangle, if you can even call it that.
Yeah. It's, it's a brief moment in time where there's a bit of an emotional struggle for Rachel, and Daniel being the understanding, the right choice, the right person to go with. It's part of their custom and their kind of way of living to, not, I guess, be forceful and show jealousy, and it's kind of just like trusting the process, and the way that things go is the way that things are.
Well,
the way that things go.
I mean, for them, it's God and it's faith.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
But it's also interesting because you could tell that Rachel is maybe a bit more of a rebel than the other women living there, and maybe is more like, I don't know if there's a past or a history, but you could tell.
She's very protective for quite a while of Samuel and herself when they are existing outside of their community, when they are in Philadelphia.
Yes.
She's just like, this is not the way it's supposed to go. We need to get back. Like, they were, because I think that it was like she was visiting, it was some relative who had just given birth. It was her sister. Yeah, how did her sister end up in like the Baltimore area?
Well, there are, I think, in 37 states, there are different Amish settlements. I mean, I think Ohio actually has the largest.
Yeah. I think that it's more of a question of like, how, I'm just wondering, it's not like how did that happen? It's kind of just like, how does that happen when a member of the community, like, how do they meet people in other states and other Amish communities?
Well, I'm guessing when they have the national convention.
Yeah.
Like in Atlantic City.
Yeah, sure. Atlantic City is going to be their first choice.
That is the natural destination.
Yeah.
I would say. No, yeah, it makes me wonder that because also I don't think any of Rachel's family is living in Lancaster. That's her husband's father that she's living with.
That's true. Yeah. So maybe she's originally from Baltimore and made her way out to Lancaster County.
Her sister turned out to be Mink Stoll.
Man, that's a fascinating prequel that we could explore, huh?
We could, but I don't know that I don't know that we need to. Anyway, any other like either performances or sequences that you really, also, how many, was this your first time seeing Witness?
No.
Okay.
I watched it a few years ago. I mean, it was, I think, my second time seeing it. But my first time was within the past 5 or 6 years. And I remember watching it and being like, oh, damn, Witness rules. And and when we decided that we were going to be covering it for our Pennsylvania episode, I was just like, great, I get to watch Witness again, because I think I knew vaguely what it was about. I mean, a cop who goes to Amish country because a kid witnesses something. Like, that's all I really knew. But to see how things play out, I think was just unexpected. And I guess I had assumed that Harrison Ford's role in it was going to be a little bit more dull than it actually is. And I think that goes along with maybe, thinking about him as like Jack Ryan. We've seen a lot of other Jack Ryans, and they've been a lot more like exciting. And he's the one that's more like, based on the inner workings of DC, and it's more of a paperwork Jack Ryan, and connecting the threads than like jumping off of buildings and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that in my mind, it was like Harrison Ford wasn't going to be as exciting. And then when I saw it, I was just really into it. And I was like, cool, I love Witness. This movie rules. Have you seen it many times before?
Not many times. I had definitely, I'm pretty sure the first time I borrowed it from Mr. Roberts on VHS. I think he definitely sold me on it in his little packet, but I think I saw it like maybe a few more times. I definitely remembered a good deal about it, but I don't think I've seen it more than like this might have been the third or fourth time.
Oh, okay.
If not the second. But I remember also thinking like, yeah, no, Witness rules.
Yeah.
And I appreciated so much more about it now. The performances, the chemistry between Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis, I think their ability to communicate and convey so much through their expressions and their exchanges that are, you know, innocuous exchanges, but
Right.
they carry so much weight to them just because the two of them have this desire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, they have great chemistry. It's really fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dan, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're in a tricky situation with this one, but I'm curious to know what you would do given the chance to bring this back somehow.
I think a remake would be could potentially work. Like a present day set remake.
So you think it's time to go back to Amish country?
I think there are still Amish communities, and I know that there, like, a lot of Amish communities have maybe maybe embraced a bit more. Like some Amish communities have loosened their restrictions a bit. But from what I was reading up on, I didn't do extensive research, but there are still communities that live fairly close to what's depicted in the movie.
Yeah.
So why not go back? It doesn't have to be in Pennsylvania. It could be in, it could be in Ohio. I think the story of having I think what's important is you need to have someone who they are a morally good, like John Book is a morally good person who is also violent.
Right.
I think you have that. I think as long as you can find a way to, and I'm pretty sure like going to Amish country, again, I did not do deep research, but that could potentially eliminate like your cell phone problem. Because
yeah.
Well, if they're like, oh no, you can't. No, we don't know. You can't have that.
Also, there's not going to be service there.
Well, right. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the way I would go. I would really be interested in seeing a remake. You could certainly, there's a lot of options. You have a lot of ways you could remake it. Essentially, though, you could keep the story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I necessarily want to see a remake of it.
Yeah.
But
there are things that you could do that maybe aren't like calling it Witness and having it be a straight up, everything about it is the same remake.
Right. Yeah. I don't think anything like a series would really work. It has to be temporary, and there has to be that urgency to it, and there need to be stakes. So like it has to be, I think, a neat like 2-hour movie. But I don't know like what's the audience for that, and what does that audience want now? Right.
That's a good question.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, just kind of going off of what you were saying, earlier you were talking about like, how do you sell a movie like this? Like, how does this movie become successful at the time? And, it came out in February of 85, and it was, for that month, it was number 2 in the box office, just after Beverly Hills Cop. And it's kind of cool how it did find an audience, not a very large one. I mean, if we're looking at Beverly Hills Cop, had a total gross of 234 million. A Witness was like 68 million, which, that's a big difference. And, you know, of course, February is not typically the biggest like awards contender time of year, because you're just getting past all of the like big ones doing Oscar pushes at the end of the year. So, although I don't know what, maybe at the time, I don't remember when the Oscars were during this time. Maybe they,
like Oscar nominations, I think that was back when the Oscars were still in like late March.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's not too different from the way that it is now. Yeah. So,
right. But this was definitely, no, if they had Oscar hopes for this movie, it would have been, they either would have found a way to put it out earlier or put it out later.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because you mentioned Beverly Hills Cop, and I'm like, you know, the two are not dissimilar.
Like, fish out of water cop situation.
Cop thriller trying to avenge you know, like a murder and fish out of water.
Yeah.
Indeed.
But I'm glad that they're different in the ways that they're different, because they're both excellent movies, and it's great that they can coexist in the same world. And and how interesting that here we are just a few weeks away from Beverly Hills Cop 4. Yeah. Do we see the return of Ellis DeWald?
Oh,
the villain from Beverly Hills Cop 3.
I mean, they're bringing back characters. They're bringing back pretty much every other character.
Was Brigitte Nielsen in it?
No, I feel like Beverly Hills Cop 3 doesn't exist in Beverly Hills Cop canon.
Oh, which is a shame.
I don't know. Let's see if there's any reference to it if Hector Elizondo comes back, then
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. You asked me what I would do with Witness.
What would you do?
I do feel like we've done our stint with, pop culture revolving around the Amish, and I'm happy to be done with that. And it's a community that, like you said, there have been some changes. I think in that world. I believe that there restrictions on electricity are different in certain communities. I know that there are some like content creators who are Amish that kind of show what life is like in the world of the Amish. So I just don't know if going back to that world is necessary. And I do like the story though of a member of a particular community, like a specialized community, witnessing a murder, and the cop, having to kind of hide out as that gets, I guess, navigated, and living amongst people in a particular, community that is far removed from what is traditional or what a lot of the inner city police would know in a place like Philadelphia. And so maybe there is a world in which there's a fictional religious community that's maybe inspired by an amalgam of different specialized religious groups that maybe you could do a remake that exists in a world like that. Honestly, you're not going to do a sequel. You're not going to do the John Waters prequel.
No.
Although sounds like a lot of fun.
Though, another thought that I had was that it would be interesting, because this movie, it's a screenplay originally, but it feels like a novel.
It feels like a book.
Yes. So I wonder if novelization, and perhaps a series of novels that perhaps sees Book continue his connection to the community, because I feel like a book also can handle, it can represent the Amish community in a way that's not not as misrepresentative or exploitative.
Yeah, totally. I think a book is a really smart way, or a series of books is a really smart way to continue the story of book. And also, you then get to see a little bit more of like what changes about his life having gone through this experience. What changes are made in the police precinct. You know, there's a lot more that can get discussed there.
Well,
So,
and also like what does, maybe also if you're going to follow, like if in these books, maybe you're following John's trajectory, but you're also following Rachel and Samuel's.
Yeah.
What does Samuel become? Does Samuel want to leave and become a cop?
Or maybe there's some sort of conflict that Samuel discovers perhaps in his teens or 20s when Book would still be, you know, on the force and everything, and goes into the city to seek out Book to help with an issue, because this is somebody they know that they can trust, who is an outsider, and they don't have very many of those people.
No.
And so that could be something that's really interesting. But of course, you wouldn't want to do that with a movie, because you're not going to get Harrison Ford to do it again. I mean, maybe Lucas Haas, but also it's like,
you're also going to be setting these books in like 1990.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense to do it as a book.
Yeah.
And maybe get people interested. Maybe if there's any aspiring, fanfic or artists out there that want to, take that on and start writing some witness. There's a great fan fiction like database. I need to look up and see if anyone's already doing some witness fan fiction.
That would be pretty fascinating. Dan, also, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. You are a high school language arts teacher. It is the cusp of summer. Perhaps it'll be time well spent to write a sequel to Witness in whatever time you have.
I need to finish my sequel to Of Mice and Men that I started writing like 9 years ago, and
maybe it's time to move on to something else.
I have made good I've actually written enough of my Of Mice and Men sequel that I think I'm going to finish it, but I just need to.
I feel like there's a difference, though, between writing a sequel to a literary classic and writing a sequel book to an 80s police thriller film.
It's all words. It's just the words that you choose and the order you choose to put them in.
Well, speaking of writing books, Dan, do you want to tell everybody what we're doing on our next episode? That's in Puerto Rico.
Yes, Puerto Rico, because we are we're gonna recognize Puerto Rico and include it in this trip, and it is in fact based on a book, a novel by one Hunter S. Thompson. We are going to be looking at 2011's The Rum Diary.
We sure are.
Starring Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, Aaron Eckhart, directed by Bruce Robinson, who I without even realizing the connection. So as you said, I'm a high school teacher and I'm teaching Romeo and Juliet, and put on a scene from the 1968 film of Romeo and Juliet, featuring the character of Benvolio, played by one Bruce Robinson.
No way.
Director of, also the writer-director of With Nail and I, and
cool.
Lots of other films.
Richard E. Grant, early Richard E. Grant film.
Yeah, launched Richard E. Grant. So I'm sure we'll get into that and talk about Hunter S. Thompson and Johnny Depp's other Hunter S. Thompson film,
and also just their connected lives with one another.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so it's a film I've never seen, so looking forward to
Same here.
To checking that out, and taking a little cinematic trip to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dan, as you are ghost riding a horse and buggy, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.